Hey guys, it's Linda Winter. I have another Winter Designs project. It's not Christmas, but maybe it is Christmas when you're watching this, and you could make these little Christmas tree napkins. I want to show you how to make these, but I want to show you some other options too, and I want to give you a faster, easier way. You could, of course, print out a paper template, whatever size you want. If you wanted to do a bigger one like this, you'd have to print out a couple pages and tape them together. And the thing with this is when you cut it out, it might not be exactly consistent. You might lose it, you might rip it. When you trace it out, you've got to trace, and then you've got to cut around with scissors. It's just a lot of work. And then where did you lose this thing? I don't know. I got to go print another one out. Or you could grab something in your house that's the size that you want, and you can trace around that and cut around all of those things. The problem is this moves, and the first one you cut may not be the same as the second one. All of those things are possible, and they're great if you're just going to make one or so. But if you want to make a bunch of these, then my no-slip templates. The no-slip template, this guy here, this is my 7.5 inch, and it's a half of a circle. I'm going to show you how to do a full circle, but I'm also going to show you the half because there are two options for you. There's also a line on here. That line is for the folding. The problem with these is right now it's folded. But if this gets dirty, if it's really used, it's going to go in the washer and dryer. And when you pull it out, it's going to be kind of a mess. And then you've got to press it, and then you've got to figure out the folding. So I've given you a line on the templates. This is my 16 inch. Now the 16 inch, you can see when I take this guy here, it's a little bit bigger because I have a seam allowance built in. But honestly, the 16 inch, the way I'm going to show you, it'll make this size, and it'll make this size, and then several in between. The 7.5 inch, it'll make this size, it'll make this size, it'll make several in between as well. So I'm going to show you how you can use the same template, whether doing the smaller guys or whether doing the larger guy, and make napkins. But these, they're going to be decorations. What are you going to do with this? If you're giving a Valentine's gift or Mother's Day gift or 4th of July gift or a whatever gift, add a little doodad. And what do I mean by doodad? I've got lots of doodads. If you're a crafter, you got doodads. Do you see how I can add this right there? Add the little string. I'm going to show you the process, but you can glue that on, you can sew it on, you can do a button heart, but this becomes a little tag to put on the gift. At Christmas time, I've got a Christmas one that's somewhere around here, and I showed pictures of it. It's on my Facebook, and I have it on my website too, so you can go see the pictures. It's red and green, of course, for Christmas, but you can also add it to your Christmas tree. You can make a bunch of these, and if you're having a party, then you have a bowl of all of these, and you say, pick your Christmas tree that you want. You've got all different fabrics. What are we going to do this out of? Scraps, because there's hardly any fabric that's necessary for these. These guys are scraps. The bigger ones, they're fat quarter friendly. From 2 fat quarters, I have plenty of fabric to make 2 of these and a couple of the smaller ones too. So you can coordinate if you want to, which is a whole lot of fun. So let's talk about the no-slip material and the couple options for you. And I've got a couple fabric choices too that I want to talk about, so we'll get to that. Directional fabric, not so much. Fabrics that look alike, color-wise, not so much. We want to have some contrast. You can see I've got the pinks and the blues here. If I fold it in the opposite direction, I pinned this, but if I fold this in the opposite direction, instead of that, the orangey kind of, or the red or the pink here, we can have it go in the opposite direction. I'll show you that a little bit later, actually. So let's take a look. We can either do a full circle or a half circle. If we do a full circle, then we're going to fold in half. You can fold in half completely, place this along the fold, or you can be like me, chintzy, and get this to where there's just enough fabric. I don't know if you can tell, but there's just enough fabric there. If I line this up, hopefully, and then put this to the edge, I don't really have that much fabric left over for scraps, but hey, if you're a scrapper, then that gives me enough left over. We've got the fold here, and you notice I'm cutting one at a time. You could do this, and you could stack this underneath here. The problem is now this one and this one, they may not be lined up, and that fold that you have there, the fold creates kind of an air pocket. So I'd rather you do one at a time with the fold. If you're doing half, which we'll do in a minute, I'll do that on this one, then you can cut a couple of those at the same time. I'm lining this up to the edge, looking right along here, and I'm going to take my rotary cutter. Now I like the Martelli rotary cutter, but you can use whatever rotary cutter you want that'll work well with the template. You notice when I'm moving this, there's the no slip backing on that. This stuff here is what makes all the difference between you printing out a template from paper, you printing out a template from the internet, you tracing a bold. This stuff here, that's what's on here. And you can see when I'm grabbing just the template, the fabric stays with it. No slipping, no kidding. Everything I'm teaching you is out there on the internet. It's the no slip material that you're getting from me. So anybody that's saying, no big deal, I've seen that. Yeah, you're right. There's lots of stuff out there. I'm not inventing the wheel. I'm just doing something a little different with the no slip backing. All right, so what are we going to do? I'm going to line that up again. I've got my rotary cutter open and I'm going to cut. Now you can cut off like that if you want to, or we can cut around and move the template. When you cut around, you can see where you left off and then just move the template. I don't want to do this with my body. I'm in a weird position. I'm starting to get some pain back here. And when I get over here, I'm not seeing the edge. I want to get that blade right along the edge of the template. That'll give me a perfect circle. And if you had anything that you needed to trim off, then you're good to go. All right, so that creates a full circle. That's one way to do these napkins. If I can get my fingers to work, we'll open up that fabric and we'll show you that, but I'm going to do one. And you can do, if you're going to do these, then make multiples, especially if you've got some scraps, make multiples. Notice what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to use the fold. I'm going to place this along, and when I go to cut, we're going to cut that off. There's two different styles. They're both Christmas trees. They're both ornaments. They're both decorations, but I've cut off the fold. It just depends on how much fabric you want to have per little decoration that you have. But do you see how that's going to give me two? You can now pull two of these coordinating fabrics and make two from that. So this guy here turns into, where are my steps? I've got steps over here, and let's see what we have. So same thing with the large. Same thing here. We're going to do the same thing here. So what do we do once we've got two of these? Whether it's the half or the full, we're going to pin together. So I've got two coordinating fabrics. Remember when I talked about having different fabrics that are going to pop? So for 4th of July, for Memorial Day, for whatever, Flag Day, backyard barbecue, have those two different fabrics there. We're going to pin around here, and then do you see this area that's left open? That's our turning area. If you've got a bigger area, let me show you what I did over here. I put a pin going in this direction that's opposite. That lets me know that I'm not going to be stitching in this area. I want to have that for turning. So if we're doing the half that we have here, I have that turning area here. I have the turning area here. I want to show you on a big circle. Remember when I cut this circle, if I have two of the circles together, we're going to stitch around, and then this area is my turning area. The smaller you can have your turning area, the better. Why? Because that right there has to be tucked in, and the tucking in part is the hard part to do. That's the part that doesn't always come out so nice. So I want to show you a little trick for that tucking in area. When we look at this, remember I left that opening that's here. Let's take a look at what I did when I sewed. We're going to stitch. Now you can see I've already pinked the edges. I like pinking rather than snipping. But do you see the stitch going down and the stitch going down? When we stitch this, if we start stitching here, you're going to stitch this away, and then you're going to stitch this way all the way around. When you get back to here, you're going to stitch to here, and then you're going to stitch inside, locking your stitches. What does that do? When I turn this over, it's going to kind of give me a little folded area. Now I've trimmed excess off, but I like a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can actually use a 1/2 inch. You can use a 3/8. You can use a scant 1/4 inch. You can use whatever it is you want. That's the cool thing about a project like this. It's whatever your seam allowance is here, it needs to be all the way around the same. I want a circle. I don't want a wonky circle. So your seam allowance, totally up to you. The smaller the seam allowance, the bigger the napkin. Hey, it's not going to make that much difference. But the idea is if you do those stitches and the stitches there, that gives you a nicer finish. Okay, so we have pinned here. We have pinned here with the 4th of July, patriotic, whatever. Let me show you the circles. When we've got the circles, here's the smaller circle, and you can see that pin right there. That area is to remind me that I need to stop here, and I'm going to be starting here. So this guy, that area is the turning area. And you can see red, white, and blue, red, white, and blue. This guy there is going to be a cute little not Christmas decoration. That turns into the little one. So you can, again, do coordinating napkins if you want to. All right, so here's my smaller one that I have, and you notice I've got a decorative fabric. When you have something that's a decoration on here, you've really got to kind of pay attention to what it is that you've got, because I don't want anything that's too big that takes away. You need to choose your fabrics, and a lot of times you're not even going to get to this point that I am now to audition your fabric. I'm going to turn this so because I want to show you what we're going to be doing. You notice with a circle that I'm bringing my thumb inside of here. I've got my thumbnail right there, and I'm just kind of pushing. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm just going to kind of run it along that edge. I want to have that seam as open as possible. I'm doing that on the half circle. I'll do it a little bit differently than the circle. What I will do both on the half and the full circle at the ironing board, I'm going to rub back and forth. Now my table's wobbling a little bit and it's not working so well, so I'm going to do it with my fingers here. But on your ironing board, if you do this with your fabric, it's basically opening up that seam. So I'm not at the ironing board, so I'm basically opening up the seam, just making sure when I go to press this, that is open. If I press this down and it's not completely open, you can see, let me just kind of fake it a little bit. Do you see how that's not going to give me a nice rounded circle, a rounded edge? So I want to make sure that I've got this as open as possible. So I said with my thumb here for this, the full circle. When I'm doing a half a circle, I like to use one of the stilettos. Now the stilettos, they've got a sharp point here and they've got this edge here. You can do this right inside of here. Same thing as I did with my thumb, but do you see how I'm kind of using this? You're not going to push really hard, but you're going to push hard enough that it's really helping you open up that seam. So you can do it from that edge, you can do it from this edge. Just don't push so hard. About a 2.4 seam allowance is what's going to work best for you. And do you see what I'm doing? I'm just holding this down and I'm bringing this here. Why is this a big deal? All these little steps that you do right now will give you a better quality project. Do I always do this? No, because I'm a getter-doner. And it shows in the end. You want to take your time and do all of that right. When you've done that, you're going to press. And again, when you're at the ironing board, you're going to make sure that those seams are nice and open. And where this is tucked in, this is where I have to kind of work at that. Turning that the right way. And let's see if I can get it to the camera so you can see. I want this area here, that's way wider than my seam allowance was. So I'm going to have to play with this a little bit. That's where fabric glue works really well. And that's where this stuff works really well too. When you get a little bit, you can put a piece of this tape down and tape that area and then work over on this side and then kind of go in the middle. So it's totally up to you. All right, so I mentioned about auditioning your fabric. You do this way before you even get to here. So let's take these two fabrics. You can see I've got them pinned right sides together. Before you do right sides together, even before you cut them, just take two of the fabrics and kind of fold and kind of fold and kind of fold. And you can see when I'm folding this, you can see if you're going to like these two fabrics together. Now, you're looking at the wrong side. Do this on the right side so you can see. But do you see how that polka dot really works well with this? So I've got this one on top. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction. And all we're doing here is deciding, do I like these two fabrics together? Again, you'd be working on the front side, so don't worry about any of this not fitting, but you get the idea. See how these play well together? So you want to play with your fabrics to make sure that they play well together. This, where this is directional, this is going this way, this is going this way, this is going this way. That doesn't matter so much. We're going to fold in half and we're going to go this way. Do you see how I can't see anything? So we're going to talk about how we work with a circle in a few minutes, because how we do the full circle is different. I love this fabric, but this does not work for this kind of project well. You could do it for the full circle, but the problem is once you start turning and turning and turning, we're going to lose some of those kitties. So pick your fabrics so that they work the best way you can do. I like gingham. I like the bandanas, you know, those kinds of things. Again, backyard barbecue. So have fun with your fabrics. If you want to do something like this, we've got a bandana, but this for a guy. Do you see how that fabric there might be, oh, okay, a guy that's saying, I don't want to use a napkin. Well, maybe I will, because there's some skull and crossbones. Okay, so what are we doing here? I'm looking to see that these are not lined up evenly. Do you see how I've got this folded now, not in direction? So all we're going to do is just kind of test this out to see, do I like this? Do you see how when I don't have those lined up evenly, how the full circle gives me both of those, and it's a little bit bigger. This one is done with half a circle, and let's look to see the size difference. If I wanted to set my table with this and put my knife in here and my fork in here and my spoon in here, I can do that. It's kind of tight in here. You could do it, but there's not as much room there. If I wanted to put this in a cup or whatever, I can do that, and there's more fabric here. What do I want you to do with something like this? We're looking at wrong sides, so don't judge me on, ugh, that's not very pretty. But you're going to take a raffia, wrap it around, and then stick it in their cup at their table setting, and it's going to look cool. Of course, you're not going to have for this, Be My Valentine, although maybe you will for a guy, Be My Valentine. But the idea is audition your fabrics before you get to sewing. Just grab some fabric and put them together and see how it looks. See how you like that. Okay, so let's go back to the step outs where we were. So remember this, we're doing those little stitches. We turn right sides out. When you do something like this, that's not the full circle, when we're turning right sides out, we're going to do it a little bit differently than the circle itself. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to come back to that stiletto. I can use my thumb, but this is a lot smaller, whether it's the larger size, the 16, or the 7.5 that I have here. I'm going to like to use this little guy here. So this, I'm pushing out those corners. And when you trim your corners, trim close, but not so close that I have to worry about those corners popping out. I like to use the pinking shears. You saw the edges for pinking shears. That to me is just a whole lot easier to do the pinking shears than snipping and snipping and snipping. It's totally up to you. So do you see how I'm just kind of running this inside, flip this out, and all I've done right now is the curve. You then want to go over and do that straight edge here and the straight edge here. When I'm doing a half a circle, again, the points matter. With a full circle, I don't have any points, so I don't have to worry about it. When you do those points, you want to make sure, again, you're not pushing so hard that you're going to poke out. And this, now when we close this, this is easier to close than the circle is. Why? It's a straight edge, and that fabric wants to automatically close for you. Can you see that corner? I still need to work on that corner to poke that out. Okay, so this is where for sure I would use the tape or some fabric glue. You can stitch, and I'll show you how to stitch with this too. So we're talking now folding. What do I do with this? This has a line on it. The template has that etching. It's hard to see. Let me see if we can see this one a little bit better. Can you see that etching right there? We want to use one of the metallic markers, and what I want you to do is get something that has a straight edge. So it can be cardboard, it can be whatever it is that has an edge there. I'm going to put this on here just to be able to show you, but I wouldn't do this here, but you're going to take this and draw along. Do that instead of what I've always done in the past is just freehand. This line, it's not a huge deal, but it's there as a guide for you. So when you use something as a straight edge, it's going to give you that straight edge. The straight edge is there for me for folding. Remember when I talked about it coming from the washer and dryer? And all of the folds are gone, so we need something to help us get the first fold. The first fold is really the one that matters. All right, so you can see my seam allowance has made this smaller. What do? We're going to put this so it's lined up where it's lined up, but I need to see here a little bit, and I need to see there a little bit. Can you see how that's lined up there? And I've got a mark here, and I've got the mark here that's showing. You can take one of the fabric erasable markers, and you can put a mark here, and you can put a mark here. What would I have done? I would have pressed this really well before I do this step. I don't have this pressed, so it's not going to give me the results that I really want, but I'd put a mark here, I'd put a mark here. Once you put those marks there, then you can place this on and draw along those marks. They're not just the fold marks, but they're the stitch marks. So when I have that mark there and I have the mark there, I don't have to do this like I was doing before and not getting it. I'm going to have that stitch line, and let's take a look. Here's my stitch line. That stitch line came from this guy. Let's pull this one back over here. And can you see how when I had this here, I'm looking at this is lined up to the edge. There's my stitch line, and you can see that's the heat erasable. I still need to get that off with the iron, but I put a mark here, I put a mark here. I took this and I lined that up and I drew that stitch line. It's not just a fold line, but it's a stitch line. When I stitch that, that gives me my first fold. So when this comes from the washer and dryer, that fold is there for me as a guide. Once I do that first one, I've got that first fold, and you choose which way you want to go. I can go this way or I can go this way. Again, when you're taking this from the washer and dryer, this crease that's in there, it's going to be gone. So right now it wants to go this way because that's how I had it. But once it's out of the washer and dryer, there's going to be nothing, no remnants that will give you any idea about folding. That's why I want to do that stitch line. So when I fold this way here, the first one, the next one, I'm going to fold up to the edge. So I'm going to basically just give that a go right there. And then I'm folding this up to the edge as well. Do you see how this, it doesn't line up exactly, it doesn't line up exactly? That's based on your seam allowance. I used a scant 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here because I wanted to see how big I could get it. But honestly, I kind of like having that over here. So now, if I wanted to stitch this down and make this a Christmas tree, I don't want to, but you could. You could stitch right in place here. You could add raffia if you wanted to, you know, tie it around here and kind of blossom it out a little bit and add one of my little decorative kind of goodies in here. You know, something like this with the raffia would be really cute in a bowl. If you're going to go for a heart theme, you've got all the little hearts. You've got all kinds of little goodies. If you don't have these goodies, there are stores like Hobby Lobby in their bridal section that have these, and they go on sale, so you can choose. That one would be cute with the skull and crossbones, you know, so that it gives that masculine, feminine kind of touch. But the idea is you can add those things if you want to, if you want to make this into something a little more like a blossom to put into, you know, it can be into a cup, but it can also go right on the plate as you're serving this. Napkins are a kind of an old-fashioned thing, but honestly, if you're talking about being good for the environment, we're throwing away napkin, 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 paper towels, all that stuff. When you go to a fast food, say, I don't need any napkins, I have some at home. These go in the washer and dryer, so they're not only economical, but they're good for the environment too. All right, so this is a half. That's the half one that I did, and that's the large one. Let's take a look at the smalls. And the small, same thing here, okay? So I've got this that's not been pressed. I'm going to open this up as much as I can. Why? Because I added right here some stitches. So when you're doing something like this, you'll add that stitch line. And again, when you've got the template, this would go onto here, line it up, press it first, just like I mentioned before. Line this up to the edge, put the mark, put the mark. That would be my first fold. If you don't want to do the stitching, you can just use this tool to do that first fold, and then you line this up to the next one, and then you line this up to the next one. And you can see this is the opposite of that, but you can see how they look similar, but not, and they can go together. That's when you decide, am I going to add something like this inside? You can take this, tie a knot, and tuck it inside of here, right inside here, and then stitch that down. And then you can add a button, a bead, whatever embellishment. I like these little flowers. These guys here, these are not for the washer and dryer, but this isn't either. This is a decoration. So this I would not add on the bigger napkins. Okay, so half and half. That's what we got here. So let's talk full. We're going to do the full. Let me get these out of the way. All right, so when you do the full, we've turned right sides out. We're going to pretend. I'm not going to take the time to do this. When we do this, you all saw how I folded so these weren't even. So when you fold this so they're not even, you can stitch down if you want to there. That will give you a guide. When you're folding here, you've got a couple different ways to fold. You can fold and you're looking at the distance here, and you're placing this over and you're looking at the distance here, and you bring this over. And do you see how that just kind of happens? Sometimes not so much. Let me show you if we're doing this. Remember, we've got that half. And if we fold here and we fold here, I'm always looking at that line there, and we fold back and forth. Do you see how now I've got it longer and taller, but it's still, I can still line that up. You choose how much you want of the red, of the black. When we go in the opposite direction, now we're going to put the red here so that the skull and crossbones are not really noticeable. So we're going to fold and fold. And again, I'm working on the wrong side, so it would be a whole lot prettier if we had turned this right sides out. But you get the idea of how you can do these napkins. This napkin here, I do not have a stitch line. So you're not going to use the template for the stitch line. You know, when I look at this fold, you can see, oh, this is a half, sorry. This one, oh no, it is a fold. I was gonna say this is half, but there it is. So you can see this doesn't line up with that line. So any of these lines that you have here, I stitched this. You can, right now after you've done your fold and you like it, you can stitch down here, or you can stitch down here, or you can stitch down here. I like to stitch on the biggest part because that gives me the first one. Stitch that down, line this up to the edge, and then when you line that up to the edge, everything lines up consistently. Do you see how this one is longer and taller than this one over here? This one was folded in half. You don't see that gold that's on the back side when you're doing this. I like seeing the contrast. You can see how it just barely peeks out. So if you wanted to have this underneath showing when you fold this, wash this or press it really well. And do you see how now when I go do my folds, this is going to show, and it also makes that napkin a little bit bigger. So just doing rough folds, you get the idea of how that's different. The other thing that I want to mention too is trims. Now this of course does not work here, but on some of the others, Valentine's Day, let's go back to this one. When you're doing something like this inside of here, you can add a rickrack. When you do your rickrack, I recommend that you either glue this down or you top stitch this down all the way first on one. So when you're sewing these together, you don't have to worry about lining that up consistently. What that's going to give you is this, not this, but all of this showing right along here. They're napkins. So do you want to take the time to do rickrack, to do lace, to do embellishments? Totally up to you. If this is the gift that you are giving for a wedding and you say, I'm going to do for your 50 guests, not me, but I'm going to do for your 50 guests napkins that go with your fabrics, with your colors, then that would be really nice to do. Lace or rickrack or trim or whatever it is. It's your call. These are fast, easy projects. You make them as much embellished, as much as complicated as you want, but that's the fun of this. Now, your circles, yeah, it's called folded tree. Do you see folded tree? That's only because if you bought this, you'd say it's a half a circle. Well, I want you to know that with a half a circle, you can do the folded tree, you can do the napkins, you can do whatever. But there's a ton of things you can do with circles. There's a ton of things you can do with half circles. So all you have to do is Google circle sewing projects, half circle sewing projects, and you're going to find a ton of stuff. Again, what makes this different from anything else out there is the no slip. That's the stuff that you're getting from me. You're not paying for the idea of this. You're not paying for the go print out a circle. You're paying for the no slip material. This stuff, when you go to cut, gives you a circle, a circle, a circle, a circle. So when you make 8 napkins, that's 16 circles you have to cut, or 16 half circles you have to cut. I want all those 8 napkins to match. And I can promise you, if you do a paper template, or if you trace a bowl, a plate, a dish, I can promise you, you're going to work really hard at getting those circles consistent. So these are on my website. What is my website? Winner, opposite of loser. That's my last name, winnerdesigns.com. I've got a bunch of templates with the no slip material. Some of them are tan, the older designs that I have that are still in stock. As we sell those out, you'll see the gray. The gray is a little bit thinner and it grabs. It also doesn't get dirty. And this stuff is amazing. No slipping, no kidding. I've got videos on YouTube. My Facebook is Winner Designs for Sewing and the ampersand, not the word and. Winner Designs for Sewing and Quilting. And if you follow me on Facebook, every month on the 15th, I draw one name from people that have liked, comment, shared, liked my post, liked my page, and they get $100+ worth of goodies. Maybe it's a gift card, maybe it's a set of templates that I'm featuring that month, whatever it is. If you follow me on my website, you'll see there's a contest page, and on the contest page, if you make something with my templates, and you guys that are out there making stuff, I love seeing the projects that you do, and I love when you call and say, hey Linda, I made something new with that template, because you guys are going to make a bunch of other things that I haven't told you about with circles, with these half circles, whether it's half circle or a quarter circle or a full circle, you can do it with these. So if you post those pictures and you write something about making that project, you're entered into my giveaway. I randomly draw at the end of the month one name, and that person wins a $100 gift card. And if you're not sure what to do and you need some ideas, you can go to my website, click on contests and entries, and you'll see each month all the projects that people have posted. It's a fairly new thing that I have on my website, so I'm hoping you guys will start adding more and more and more, and maybe you'll get a chance to win. But it's also great inspiration, and it's great to be able to say, look what I made. We're not looking at the best, the nice, whatever it is that you are at in sewing, beginning sewer, or you're an experienced sewer or quilter and you want to get stuff done because you want to have some fun, change from working on a huge quilt to working on some quick little projects. Those are the kinds of things that are really fun to see on that website too. So Winner Designs for Sewing and Quilting. This is my 16-inch folded tree. This is my 7.5-inch folded tree. I have them individually, or you can buy them as a set, or you can just say, hey, I'm going to try this out with some paper templates, and then I bet you'll be looking at, maybe I need that no slip material. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas here, and I can't wait to see what you do with all of this stuff. Bye.